Well, welcome back everyone. Prepared Suburbanite here. Wanted to share a story in light of all the stuff that's been going on over the last week or so with the riots in all the major cities. I knew a man that lived in Charlotte who was quite a mentor to me. At the time I first met him, he was actively involved in the Healthcare Financial Management Association and was serving as president. I worked with him on a number of committees and projects and councils, and really grow to know him as a friend, as a mentor, and as a big positive influence in my life. And I want to tell you a story about Dr. Bob, so stick around. Dr. Bob was a healthcare financial management executive in the Carolinas healthcare system located in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was a retired U.S. Air Force Reserve colonel. He was a professor at UNC Charlotte and at Pfeiffer University in the Charlotte area. He had served as president of the North Carolina Healthcare Financial Management Association. And on Good Friday, 2011, 9 years ago, he was murdered. It was Good Friday. He had the day off. His wife is a nurse, and she had to work that day. In fact, I believe she was a recovery room nurse and may have actually also worked at the same hospital where Dr. Bob worked. He met her for coffee at a Caribou coffee shop in their hometown neighborhood where they were regular customers. She drove off to work after they had their breakfast. She drove the car to work and he walked home. He was followed by a fellow named Chauncey Sterling, an 18-year-old black man, high school dropout, running with the wrong crowds. And Chauncey followed Dr. Bob with the intent to commit a robbery. I believe he followed him for about 3 blocks from the coffee shop as Bob walked back home towards his house. Bob noticed he was being followed, or felt that he was being followed, turned around and looked and saw Sterling with a gun. Confronted him, grabbed for the gun. Sterling stepped back and shot him point blank in the chest and left him there to die. And he did. Bob was white. Bob was a Christian. Bob was a terrific human being. Did not deserve what he got, what happened to him. The funeral was absolutely breathtaking. I remember being there. I remember being moved to tears with the speeches that folks gave in his honor at his funeral at the First Presbyterian Church in Charlotte. There were no riots. There were no robberies or break-ins or riots or any of that kind of stuff. No protests. It was, I believe, racially incented. Some of the early news accounts that came out of the Charlotte news arena indicated that the motive for the murder, aside from attempted robbery, was that Sterling wanted to kill a whitey. And he did. In 2013, Sterling was found guilty of first degree murder and attempted robbery, and was sentenced to life without parole. He was 20 years old at that time. Since then, he has filed an appeal saying that his conviction wasn't done correctly and trying to get off on some technicalities. That appeal was heard and summarily dismissed. There were no issues. He currently serves in a North Carolina prison for the rest of his life. The reason that I'm bringing this up is I believe that Bob's murder was racially motivated. The other direction. Not the direction that you're hearing about in the news where a white guy kills a black guy. And that was absolutely tragic, should never have happened. And whatever justice is going to be meted out on that perpetrator of that horrible, horrible crime in Minneapolis, I hope he gets the book thrown at him. They've originally charged him now with third-degree murder and manslaughter. I'm not quite sure that that's going to be enough. In fact, I'm not quite sure we've got all the facts yet. I'm not quite sure we know all the details behind it. It has come out recently that both the perpetrator, the cop, and the victim, the black fella, worked together at a couple of different nightclubs running security as bouncers and security teams at those nightclubs in the Minneapolis area. So it's very possible that these two folks really did know each other. What's happened since then makes absolutely no sense at all. I understand the protests. I understand trying to get a message out that there is, seems to be anyway, an extraordinarily biased approach from the police against the black community. I understand that that's the feeling. I understand that that's what they believe. I'm not sure it's all supported by the facts in the case, but the riots, the destruction, the fires, the burning, the threats, the absolute devastation of major cities. And it's even hit right here in Wake County, North Carolina. Raleigh has been hit pretty hard. Durham had quite a number of protests, but I think they were actually a little bit more tame. But Fayetteville Street in downtown Raleigh was absolutely decimated. They say there's not a pane of glass on Fayetteville Street that's not broken. That's not how you get the message out that there's injustice in the world. That doesn't work at all. I believe there's been a failure of the leadership in a number of our states and cities that have allowed this kind of reaction to escalate to the point where it's been so absolutely devastating. I just don't know how it's ever going to stop. It breaks my heart to see what's going on. It breaks my heart to see what's happening in America, the greatest country that has ever been conceived. And here we are right now dealing with a huge divide in this country. Left versus right, black versus white, Democrats versus Republicans. It's just, the division is going to tear us apart. And we need to be drawn back together. I've seen calls out to the president saying you need to step up and work hard to try to reunite this country and get us focused back on the right track. I'm not sure that one man can do that. I hope he does step up. I hope he gets off Twitter. I hope he doesn't say any more dumb things like he has in the past. And I hope he's up to the task. I hope he can actually try to reunite this country. It's not going to happen with some of the Democrat governors. It's not going to happen with the Democrat mayors that have allowed this thing to escalate out of control. I am just absolutely heartbroken that we're beginning to lose our country. Given that we're in the midst of all this COVID-19 lockdown nonsense, and I'm not even sure what to believe anymore. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Stay at home. Oh, you can get the virus at home because you're being isolated. Don't go anywhere. I don't know what's the truth and what's fiction anymore, and I don't know what's going on, other than there is the beginnings of tyranny, and I am very concerned about that. I am so glad that we were prepared for this pandemic because we stockpiled food, we stockpiled water, we've got alternate forms of communication, we've got alternate forms of water purification. We had enough to get us through, at least to this point, and I've still got probably another months and months worth of supplies here, where we do not have to leave our home to go anywhere to do anything. And I am so glad that I invested the last few years in being prepared for something like this. And this turned out to be actually pretty mild, all things considered. Yeah, the big comparisons back to the 1918 Spanish flu, 50 million people ended up dying because of that. And it's probably because we didn't have the healthcare technology, we didn't have the forms of communication that we've got now, but people were just dropping all over the place. 50 million people. That's an amazing statistic. I don't think it's ever going to get quite that bad here with this COVID-19 nonsense, but I am so glad we were prepared. This is the Prepared Suburbanite, bringing you a few thoughts. So be prepared, stay prepared, and be prepared always. I'm out for now. See you on the next video.